and let us all do we can to build a better future. But now, Daniel, you got a story for the people. What is going on?
Okay, so I came across this article by the New York Times.
The New York Times, the paper of record, right?
Oh, yeah, the real record, indeed. Recording bad choices. And they had this article, and I've read it a couple times. It's literally, which in the show notes, you can check it out. It's like 30 pages long. I have no idea what they're actually saying. And I kept reading, I'm like, what's their point?
What are they talking about?
They're just complaining about Joe Rogan with no thesis. They're just like, oh, people don't listen to us. I'm going to read some of this. I only have a couple pages because I just don't want to waste the ink on reading the entire thing.
Daniel, before we actually get started in the article, I'm actually going to lean back and just listen. Okay, everyone, let's hear the New York Times be biggity bitches.
Yeah, I mean, there's this. Just here. Just listen. I'm just going to let them talk. Originally, I wasn't even going to show this because it's just such a mess. This is how the article starts. The article is called, and this is what they're complaining about, Joe Rogan is too big to cancel. And they're so upset about it. They're so upset they can't cancel him. That's all okay. He's now one of the most consumed media products on the planet. His Spotify deal, estimated at 100 million, speaks to the allure of making audiences feel they're on something subversive. Other comics called him Little Ball of Anger. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that about Joe Rogan. No, wait. Ever.
Can I pause you on one quick? Okay, so like I remember when Joe Rogan was even initially getting started off too, like way early back in the early 2000s. No one's ever called him a little ball of anger. No comedian that I ever think. Maybe they might say it behind his back, but not on public record.
Maybe that's their personal moniker for him they use in their office.
I can't think of any comedian
someone tell me. Has you ever heard someone call Joe Rogan a little ball of anger?
No.
Semi-affectionately, never to his face, but it's apparently wide. It's weird.
Okay, so then he's already outing himself as an idiot, whoever this author is.
A man flammable by bearing and branding, it seemed, with his taekwondo muscles.
Taekwondo? What?
Yeah, taekwondo muscles.
So does this guy have like a little like crush on him? Because he has taekwondo muscles.
This entire thing is weird. It's just so weird that the New York Times would say, "Yep, do this."
Oh my God, what a
and scorching conviction that their Bible has some holes. Are we?
I also watched some Joe Rogan shows before too. I've never seen him snap or yell at anyone, and I've never seen him use his taekwondo muscles on anybody.
But what they're going to do with this is they're bringing up the Bible. They're going to all this entire article is like every single group they can think of split away. Don't like him, hate him.
Go on.
We're gonna So remember, I'm going to say it again. His taekwondo muscles and scorching conviction that the Bible has some holes. That's not what you identify Joe Rogan with, but okay. And then they quote, Noah was 600 years old and a drunk. Joe Rogan told his Los Angeles crowds some 2 decades back. They had to go, because they're like, we have to find something where he's questionable with religion. What's the closest? I don't know. 2 decades ago he said something about it.
Man, that is weak. Something that's 2 decades old? No one cares about anything for 2 decades. No,
but it's just weird. And one favorite bit about the implausibility of the scriptural arc. Okay. So that's why. Okay. Anyway, so he said something 2 decades ago. That's why it's the core of his. Anyway, and they're going to keep going with he doesn't like religion aspect, which is just weird. He's made himself very clear. He's completely agnostic. He doesn't really. I mean, I would just expect the New York Times to maybe do some research. But then he'd spar afterward with a waitress who was raised Catholic and mindful of divine wrath. Who are we talking about? Is this Richard Dawkins we're talking about? If it is, that makes more sense. But this is such a weird thing to attribute to Joe Rogan, especially since he's like... I feel like it's like this doesn't make any sense, and we're having to fact-check the New York Times like in real time. So... Stand back, said Eleanor Kerrigan, the comic store waitress who became a comedian herself, would say to Mr. Rogan, blessing herself as he left the stage, you're going to burst into flames It's not sacrilegious. Rogan. So what they're saying is they found a super religious person that they interviewed who was a waitress, and there's a story. That's the New York Times. You're not. And he said it's not sacrilegious. Mr. Rogan protested. According to Miss Kerrigan, you're not hearing what I'm saying now, for better or worse. That's their opening. This is their start. Again, this goes on almost exactly the same kind of drivel for 30 pages. I would almost read it. I would just say go in the show notes, read it like fan fiction.
Whoa, wait, this is a 30-page article?
Yes.
About why they can't cancel Joe Rogan?
Yes, they're
and
so
that's their
upset.
opening?
This is their opening to the article.
Oh, pathetic.
And it's not sacrilege. It's the New York Times. What are you guys doing? Now, for better or worse, many millions of people are hearing what Joe Rogan is saying, but he's still not sure they're always getting the joke. Ha, ha, ha. But he has yet to burst into flames. This is the first part of... Again, does this sound like people could have disagreements with Joe Rogan? I know a lot of people in our audience don't like him, but no one would describe him in this way. It's just weird. Mr. Rogan, 53, is one of the most consumed media products on this planet, with the power to shape taste. By the way, let's see, where was it? They literally are copy paste. Like, he's not even writing. Like, I'm going to read again the first paragraph. He's now one of the most consumed media products on the planet. Back here, Mr. Rogan 53 is one of the most consumed media products on the planet.
You don't ever write an article like that with a repeat
especially
from your opening.
In like the first, anyway, with the power to shape taste, politics, medical decisions. Oh, that they're throwing that in, the little jab at the his. Anyway.
Okay, whatever.
With the power, anyway, a fact well known to legions of men under 40, nonsensical to many, Rogan unaware over 50, which is the audience that they eclectically put together, and befuddled by his own omission. To the man himself, his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, is effectively a series of wandering conversations, often over whiskey and weed, which is also not how you would describe what he's doing, but okay. By the way, Joe Rogan has on more scientists than the New York Times, so just want to throw that out there. On topics including but not limited to comedy, cage fighting, psychedelics, quantum mechanics, and the political excesses of the left.
Okay.
This is funny. And there's a little bit left, but the show was licensed to Spotify last year with an estimated $100 million deal. Again, I'm going to go back to the opening paragraph. His Spotify deal estimated at they don't know what to say in this article. And it's just so weird. It's so weird. The show was licensed to Spotify last year at an estimated $100 million deal. Already said earlier, boosted by the conceit that it can blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to read any more. Let's just be real. This article is rambling, incoherent, factually inaccurate. It's a mess. It doesn't get any, it doesn't describe him. And like, even people that don't like him are like, that doesn't sound. Oh yeah, Joe Rogan, the religious warrior, the anti-religious warrior, like Richard Dawkins. What are you talking about? What? How did New York Times paper of record recording the wrong facts?
Okay,
they're just complaining. The overall thing, if you again read it, it's just to go. What am I reading? Read it.
Okay.
The entire thing that they're doing is just complaining that they can't cancel him and they don't have the control to force him to do what they want, and they're really butthurt about it. That's the entire 30-minute rambling of the article. I don't know how an editor greenlit this travesty.
All right, here, I'm gonna make it very simple to all those who say, oh, well, Joe Rogan needs to be canceled. Look, I respect Joe Rogan because he really did a lot for this business, especially being online and on social media, and just really making a presence, making himself known to where people who show up on his show, anyone who shows up on the show, like millions of viewers are going to listen to him. He has power, and that he has helped create a lot of people make a name for themselves. That's what Joe Rogan has done. Now, at one point in time, the New York Times used to do that, when New York Times used to be a paper of integrity. But, oh, wait.
You know, back when they were for every single war except that one time.
Yeah, except for that one time. But who knows? I mean, again, there was a point in time, maybe a short window, where the New York Times did mean something. But this is what they've been reduced down to. Another thing, too, when they're bringing up his comedy act 20 years ago, I said this before in the show, and I'll say it again. Comedy is an art form. And if you have to censor that, it's not comedy then. It's not funny then. No one wants to show up to that. Look, if there's a certain comic that you don't like, a certain comedian that really makes you feel uncomfortable, don't watch their stuff. Don't go to their show. It's just that simple. But if you're calling for someone to be censored because, they made something funny or they poke fun at some sort of institution, in the realm of comedy, everything is open for ridicule. Everything from the U.S. Constitution to the Holy Bible to anything overseas to anything political to even people's preferences. It doesn't matter. If you're a comedian and you are really good at your art, then you are going to really make a funny skit. And that's the whole idea of comedy. And if you're going to bring up what he made a joke about Noah
20 years ago
being 600 years old and a drunk. Well, if I was 600 years old, I'd be drinking all the time too. I'd be like, my God, aren't I dead yet? I mean, come on.
But again, all this article is just factual inaccuracies. Again, New York Times, paper of note. You should be. PolitiFact. Why don't you fact check this article? I dare you to fact check any amount of this article. But it's just like they're describing. It's just weird to me. It's just like every part about it just seems poorly put together. And I think someone mentioned in chat that they're likely trying to just get clicks out of this. And I think you're exactly right. This article exists to get clicks and views and not make any sense. But again, just like everything else that mainstream media is doing, they are tearing apart their reputation in the long term for profit in the short term. It's like you built a wonderful home for your family, and you don't want to buy firewood, so you start taking apart the foundation for the wood. That's all they're doing. It's just weird.
There's another thing too, and what this has to do with maybe the quote unquote controversial people that Joe Rogan has had on his show. Well, guess what? If you have a good show, you're going to have a lot of people on it. I mean, that's the thing. Here at Hard Lens Media, I mean, look, we've had libertarians on our show. We had Greens. We had socialists. We had progressives on our show. And from time to time, we would get small messages from people saying, you shouldn't interview that person. You shouldn't interview this person.
Oh, it's always the funniest part is when two different groups would both email both of us and say you shouldn't interview the other side.
Yeah, and it's like, that's not how you do a good show. If you create an echo chamber, then the show is just an echo chamber, and it's just reaffirming different people's point of view. I know when I look at our live stream audience, we have people of different perspectives, different points of view, and that's life in general. You're always going to run into somebody that's going to think differently than you. That's how it was before any of us were born, and that's how it's going to be long after we are dead. And the very fact that, again, why Joe Rogan is too big to cancel, something that needs to be brought up is the fact that Spotify, some of its workers were threatening to walk off because they wanted Joe Rogan and some of his shows canceled.
Our personal opinion
you can't
should
do that to somebody.
Stuff.
And plus, look, he has built his show from scratch, from nothing. If you rewind back the clocks when he was starting off, he was just doing it in his room, the Joe Rogan show. You know, it started off small, and then it became something big. And you want to know why? He's dedicated to it, and he built his media empire. And I'm pretty sure if all these people who are calling for him to be canceled, if they start off like that and someone was calling to be canceled them, I'm pretty sure they'd be pissed off. So what I want to say is this. Hard Lens Media, we started off in the streets. And I, for one, don't like cancel culture. I don't like censorship. If you start doing that, you're going to create a bigger problem. And no one likes puritanical logic because it sucks. Because every time you use this Puritan mindset, you're making the problem far, far worse. And no one likes to hang out with a Puritan because you know what? They're not fun. They're not fun people to be around with. And so, Joe Rogan, keep on making these people uncomfortable. Keep on doing what you're doing. And I know that on July 26th, Jimmy Dore from Chicago will be on his show. So that's going to be fun.
They're very upset about that, too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, hey, Jimmy, have fun on Joe Rogan's show. Go ahead. Have fun.